Hi, this is John Harcher, and welcome to episode 29 of Valleys of Numenor. We've made it to episode 8 Foundation, and we're dealing with more of the space aspects of the story. The 3 or 4 or 5 main characters are facing major challenges. How do they deal with them, and how will they affect the fate of the Empire and the Foundation? Episode 29, Foundation Episode 8, The Missing Piece. Boy, that could refer to almost anything. Now beware, there's some flashing light sequences in this episode, so take your pills. We start on Anacreon. Nice to see it after all these episodes. Not so nice as what happens next. A couple of kids are playing in the woods when explosives fall from the sky, killing the boy and scarring the girl. Oh, it's her! Farah goes into exposition mode as the Invictus starts pulsating faster. Hardin knows the Empire took out half of her people. Guess bad guys do it in a snap of their fingers these days. And the Empire will respond if they attack Trantor like Farah wants to. The Red Huntress really doesn't care as long as her revenge is met. Maybe she'll let the Foundation survive. Maybe she won't. Maybe. As Gaal's ship approaches Helicon, she and Harry's holograms start talking about her premonitions. Apparently, she foresaw the fall of the Empire and the damage it would cause. That's when he lets her know why they're going to Helicon, to set up the second Foundation. In the asteroid field, Hugo reaches one of his old bases. He sends an SOS to Thespis in hopes of reaching someone to let them know what's going on. Over on the Maiden Moon, the Great Spiral has begun. 170 kilometers. Sorry, I don't have my phone with me to figure out how many miles that is. No food, no water, dressed in very light clothing, and nothing inorganic, meaning the shield and nanobots can't go with Cleon Day. If you fall to one knee along the way, you can get help. If you fall to two knees, you're done. Either crawl off to the side or die, one or the other. At the end of the spiral, there's a pool of water with ionic salt around it. You go in, you have a vision, then come back, and the Zephyrs will figure out what it means. He takes Demerzel's salt off her bracelet to have her with him, of sorts. After a few hours of walking, Day is already getting tired. He runs into a fellow traveler and tries to find out everything about the trail and the visions. The man tells him about his life and how this is the only trip he's ever been able to make, and the only one he'll ever need to. Back near Helicon, Harry doesn't want to tell Gaal exactly what the second Foundation is for, so she wants out of the whole thing. We go back to Day and the other guy, and the Emperor falls, but just to one knee. He takes the man to get himself back up. Back over on the Invictus, Hardin and the others are walking to the bridge, being led by the Anacreons. She talks to the man guarding her about what will happen to Anacreon if something happens to Trantor. She tells him his little girl won't be safe if that happens. Then they get too close together and the ship attacks, kills somebody. Hardin realizes from the way the guns are positioned and where the bodies of the previous crew are, there was a mutiny, so the guns are facing out. Farah uses Salver as bait to trick the gun into shooting at her while she sends an arrow right at it, taking it out. Hardin opens the bridge door where she finds a gun sitting right there. She shoots, grabs Lewis in, and then shuts the door. They find the captain dead, leaving a note EXO in blood. The ship says it will jump again in 20 minutes. Lewis then figures out what's going on. Since it's an older ship, it wasn't run by the spacers, the beings who were genetically engineered to withstand the jumps. So normal old humans had to find some kind of protection so they can manually navigate it. The lights let them know how long they had to get in these pods that will keep them safe while they operate the ship. Then they had to have an operation so they could literally get plugged into the ship in the back of their heads. Hardin asked if they could navigate the jump without doing all that. He said they could, but it would likely be a death sentence. Well, so be it. They're taking the ship back to Terminus. Speaking of back on Terminus, Mary lets the head Anacreon know the vault's field is getting larger and they'll all be knocked out for good unless they leave. Day and his buddy are still doing the spiral when the old man falls to one knee. The Emperor goes to help him up when he puts the other one down. He says he's fine because he's going to a better place, but what if this is it? With that, he lies down and Day is forced to limp on by himself right when he gets to the rocky part of the planet. Seems this is the bad part of the trip. Lots of skulls and bones lying around. Too bad because the sacred pool is right there down the bottom of the hill. With his burned feet, he wades into the water, then falls in to drink. Once back at the temple, he tells the Zephyrs what he saw. He says the salt turned itself into a flower with 3 petals. They say that echoes the creation of the 3 moons, one becoming 3 like the goddesses, and the emperor as well. Funny how that works out. This shows his soul is not stagnant and he isn't that far from being the gods themselves. Convenient. Gaal really does not want to go to Helicon now. She tries to open the doors but can't, so she decides a little threat. She's ready to take a hammer to the control panels if she doesn't find out exactly what's going on. Harry won't tell her, so she shatters it, meaning the heat controls are destroyed and she'll be burned up. She says he really didn't need her if things were still going as planned. She makes a good point, so he opens the door to the pod. She goes back out into space but takes the knife with her again. She decides to go back home to Synnax, which will take a mere 138 years. Day emerges from the temple and the people bow to him. Hey, just like home. Right before he gets on the ship, he thanks Halima for inspiring him. She bows to him and he returns Demerzel's salt to her. Before they leave, the robot pays a visit to Halima, who will not become Proxima after all. The soon-to-be former Zephyr tells Demerzel she can leave the Emperor and find her own path. She tells her that she can't. When Demerzel tells her she did the spiral 11,000 years ago, she figures out she's a robot and realizes she isn't leaving the room alive. Yet, somehow the robot has compassion, which means she does have a soul. She's at least killing her nicely through a poison in her skin. But, these 3 laws, they're getting kind of squishy, aren't they? Salvor tries to get the jump controls working before Farah and Rowan, the other guy, get in. But before Lewis can plug her in, the doors open and he gets shot. The 2 Anacreons close in on Hardin, but suddenly the Thespin ship's Hugo called for attack. Of course, the gun Salvor has malfunctioned, so it turns into a hand-to-hand fight. They're still battling when the ship jumps to where? Back on the Emperor's ship, Demerzel tells Day it's done, but why did he feel he had to do that? It's also strange that he happened to see a vision of the very flower she has in her room, but she's happy he saw something since it means he has a soul, like her apparently. He doesn't seem too happy anymore after she tells him this as he prepares for the jump. We find out he didn't see anything after all. I think they should have established the spacers as more a part of the story. They play into the plot in several points here, and we just know them as the big things that look like the last alien at the end of Close Encounters. They do really start to push the second foundation here, but don't get the location correct for now. Not ruling out the correct placement by the end of the series or whenever. They're also starting to really establish Demerzel as a vital part of the overall plan, but was she there at the beginning or did she join up with it later? We'll have to wait and see how this develops. The only plot that didn't get moved is the Brother Dawn one, but there's plenty of time to deal with that next episode. Next time we deal with the first crisis. Wait, what the heck has been going on so far? Please hit the subscribe button if you like what you're hearing. I'm John Hartart. Thanks for listening.